Hello everybody, my name is RagingRaptor and I welcome you to a new World of Tanks video. And today we'll have a look at the Sandbox server. In particular, I'll tell you a little bit what is going on in the Sandbox server, what is interesting about it, my personal experience and my personal opinion, and in the background you have a little bit of footage of me doing some wonky stuff with people in it. Well then, the Sandbox server is now live for 1 day. Yesterday it went up on the 11th of October and it shows us what Wargaming is, what they are saying, working for since 2014. HD maps. So what is HD maps, or what are those maps? Those maps are basically 12 maps. SANDBOXSERVER, Redshire, Prokorovka, Murovanka, Mountain Pass, Mines, Malinovka, Himmelsdorf, El Haluf, Cliff, it's called Chapel, no, not Chapel, also not Cloister, Abbey, and the last one being Steps. And those 12 maps got quite the nice lifting. And the first thing you will notice when you go onto the Sandbox server and find actually a game to play, because it's still rather buggy, you will find that those maps look big, really big. Even though they're still the same size, they feel much wider, much bigger, and this is actually kind of funny to see. They were able to give all of those maps a setting where those maps lay inside, and you can watch over those border settings and you still feel that the map is quite big. And that's a really good feeling in my opinion. And it might sound a little bit biased, but the first thing I saw when I was on SANDBOXSERVER or El Haluf, I felt like in a map of Battlefield 1 on the sand map, because it was so big and it was simply like you could watch over those borders, over those red line sniping, and you still got the feeling you could actually access those places. Obviously you can't, because, well, it needs to be balanced somehow. But it really feels great. The first thing is, this is the first thing you will notice. The second thing you will notice is that several maps got quite the change to themselves. I think a good example would be Steps. Steps received a small river on one side, one base with the train tracks got a Gustav, the big Gustav cannon, the 80cm cannon, which shot on Paris, I think. And another Salt Lake riverbed or something like this. And it also got quite a lot of new positions to camp at. And this in particular is something I noticed. The vegetation looks great, but there are a lot more vegetation to be sawn or to be seen. And there's also a lot more positions, I think, where scouts, for example Murovanka Magic Forest, and TDs, again Steps, will have a lot more fun defending their base, because there are positions which are like on little hills with a lot of bushes at, and we all know how Stritzwagens, for example, love such bushes. Honestly, right now I don't really mind that, because, well, I'm one of those guys which likes to play TDs, and I'm pretty darn happy to see that said TDs might get a buff with certain maps. And this is, first of all, the gameplay which changed, and a lot of changes were also made to several paths. Like some paths are not accessible anymore, but others are more prominent, and also the maps look a lot brighter. Notably Cliff. It really looks brighter and it really feels good. And well, so far they're also saying they might go to do some major changes to those maps more or still, but right now they're kind of the same. Like, they still feel the same, but they look completely different in my opinion. Sadly, or probably good for most people, the things called climbing, mountain goating is gone. Like on many maps there are no climb opportunities anymore, but it still some were still there, and even newer ones were added, which is in my opinion not big of a deal, because, well, climbing is for me the masterpiece of learning how to play the game, or learning how to game mechanic works, but I'm still not that good at it. Otherwise, visual enhancements, the maps really feel like a game from 2016-17. Especially when I go a little bit closer or deeper into those textures, you really feel that they got a lot of time into it. I'm happy about it. I really am happy about it. When we also look at textures in general, you can feel or you can see that they changed a lot, and they're not anymore those copy-paste textures, and you really feel that most of those textures really are made for one setting in particular, which is really nice in my opinion. It's a nice little touch. Otherwise, the game also got terrain deformation. Sadly, it's not really that what you think it is, like you make a crater with shooting repeatedly at one position. Sadly, that is not what it is meant. It is more meant that the shells or the holes, for example, an artillery splash makes, still stays, even though it's already gone. So far, it just disappeared after a while, and now it stays. Another new feature Wargaming is really praising at is the new soaking mechanic, or when a tank gets dirty, wet, or so on. And this is in particular true, for example, the 3090. When he drives 3105, when you drive into the water, you will note that this tank turns from this azure blue, dark blue into almost black. It really looks great, the effect. But my biggest problem right now is the dust gathering or the snow gathering. Well, snow maps are not yet out, but they should come as well sooner or later. The biggest problem is, in my opinion, with the dust gathering, it doesn't really look like it's enough dust. For example, let's take SANDBOXSERVER or El Haluf. You go into a water ditch, you dive a little bit, make your tank nice wet, and then you start to run over those dunes. First of all, the water should make that the sand really clings to your skin. And this sadly doesn't feel like, because I think that if a tank is wet and it then goes into a sand dune and starts to drive around, dusting up everything, the tank should not be blue or black anymore, it should be sand colored or yellow. I really hope they're going to change this a little bit, because then the game would actually look really, really great so far. It already looks great, but those are stats which honestly War Thunder did 1 year ago much better, and also tracks in general, like tracks on the floor, they really don't feel that good so far compared to War Thunder. Still, those games are quite different, because War Thunder is really RNG based and probably a little bit more skill based, while World of Tanks is purely calculations and RNG obviously. And next big thing is the responsive water, and I have to say here, yes, the responsive water looks much greater, except for the river sides. They could be a little bit better when it comes to water going up and down and wetting those rocks, but I think this would actually be a little bit too much. But plowing through the water with your tank really, really feels cool and great in general. And it also really does some fun doing that, because you actually could feel like you really feel those waves. And now it doesn't feel unnatural when you drive into the water and you don't see any waves coming from your tank, but you suddenly slow down because of friction, which is logical obviously. But right now you really feel that these tanks are wet, they need to push this water away. But there are also some new places, for example on Redshire, where a Zeppelin went down, that it looks really muddy, the floor, and you think like, oh yeah, this will be soft terrain and our tanks will be really bad at maneuvering. Sadly, this is not the case. I do hope they're changing that, but it's kind of awkward when you know that the Lakeville Canyon is really bad, like soft terrain. But this terrain back there is also muddy and really looks muddy, but it's not soft terrain. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Otherwise, the flora really looks great. The shading looks great. It really felt you could do tons of great pictures just standing in the roof of foliage or of the trees and see those tiny little lightings going through and illuminating your tank. The skies also really do look great, and advanced lighting where, for example, a trap or like a yellow coating looks down on your tank and it makes it a little bit green colored. It really looks great so far. And yes, I really do think that many things could change, especially with the Havoc engine. The Havoc engine is something which is kind of wonky in my opinion because it's client-based and not server-side. I think so far it's not bad at all. But the biggest problem is, in my opinion, that so far you just push those things away, and you push those things away hard. You will see it in some of the footage in the back, or already saw it where with a 3105 I drive through the barrels and they just fly everywhere. You won't drive over those things because, this is true, people which disable those destructible objects won't see those rubble flying all over the place. So theoretically, when you would drive over a rubble and lift up your tank because you need to drive over said rubble, the other guy in the enemy team which did not have this rubble enabled, so destructible objects enabled, he would think, what the hell, why is this tank in the air on one track? And this is something which is, sure, it looks great and such, but what should I say? I think it doesn't have any gameplay helpings. And the same goes for the buildings so far. The buildings are still in the 6 or 4 patches of areas which you just need to one-shot and then they explode, this one patch. Sadly, they need to also redo that because so far those buildings really still look, compared to the other maps, the destructible buildings really look not that good. Anyway, so far I have to say, when you have the chance to go on the Sandbox server or just look some streams, presumably mine when I'm the test server, no, go look some streams, try to get your hands on the Sandbox server and see for yourself how the game is playing out for you. My laptop had no real troubles playing the game on highest possible graphics. Only if I started to record and stream, then it started to be a little bit laggy. And my laptop has an i7 processor, I don't know which one correctly, and a 1060 graphics card. The performance wise really feels good, and sadly I don't really have comparison between the worst possible lookings and the best possible graphic settings, but we will see later on. As always guys, thanks for watching and good luck on a battlefield, and I'll leave you with some more little footage of us Germans doing some funky stuff. Thanks for watching.
Nein! Und dann kann ich mich da runterstellen.
Warte, das wollte ich gerade machen, mach mal.
Ich schaff das!
Das ist nicht so schlau.
Warte, stell das doch mal nicht.
Ich glaube, wir kommen nicht mehr raus. Oh.
Mein Panzer bäumt sich hinten irgendwie auf.
Doll Himmelsdorf bei B56, da in der Gasse kannst du auch in so eine Hauslücke rein.
Da sind wir gerade drin.
Okay.
Da haben uns gerade alle. Basti ist mit einem 1C reingefahren, ich mit einem 10er Rheinmetall, allerdings mit einem 1305.
Diesen scheiß Spot hier drin.
In Übungsräumen könnte ich das zum Beispiel lassen, aber in Random dann führen das so aus. Wenn das populär wird und dann.
Ja, ist ja wurscht, so schießen wir einfach. Aber wenn wir nichts mehr testen wollen, dann kommen wir ja in die nächste rein. Bootram oder was?
Nein, ich möchte dich umschippern. Ja, doch.
Ja, aber ich komme ja trotzdem nicht drauf.
Vielleicht kannst du wieder auf mich drauf fahren, warte.
Oh, vielleicht kann man ja Basti da über den Schutthaufen schießen.
Ich schieben? Ja, probier mal zu schieben.
Warte.
Warte, nicht? Jetzt ja.
Warte.
Ja.
Warte, fahr zurück. Mit Anlauf. Alle 3 mit Anlauf. Okay, let's go.
Bist du schneller als für mich?
Ja!
Und jetzt?
Jetzt ist hier der nächste Schutthaufen und sonst nichts.
Ah, mich kriegst du aber nicht schon, vielleicht krieg ich dich schon.
Ja, wollte ich jetzt auch gerade sagen, weil du bist ein bisschen schneller. Warte, noch mal Anlauf. Noch ein bisschen rüberfahren. So, los.
Du bist gleich tot.
Ich seh schon kommen, ne. Ja! Nein. Ja, ja.
Oh, und jetzt steht er da hinten.
Über alles.